Segregation in New York City is a big issue. It still is. It's throughout our system. Unfortunately, it sets students as young as 3-year-olds just on one track, and it's completely based on where they live.
The admissions director here at Bard Queens. And more importantly, I'm also a Bard High School alum. So I was part of the first graduating class that graduated in 2003. After I finished my studies at Bard High School, I ended up at Bard College. I transferred every single credit, graduated in 2 years. And then I came right back to Bard High School. I wanted to make sure that I was able to help other students that looked like me, that were in the same kind of situation as me, get this really great education. My time at Bard High School was really impactful in many ways, as a learner, as a person, and I just wanted to make sure that other students had that opportunity. The diversity initiative was based on research, and this was after I shared with them a paper by the Annenberg Institute at Brown University called Demography is Destiny. So basically, like, where you're from determines where you're going. And it was this really depressing paper with statistics about these, I would say, 13 neighborhoods in the Bronx specifically that had the lowest college readiness rates. And the paper went on to explain how the majority of those students in those zip codes actually stayed in their neighborhood for school for various reasons, right? Lack of resources. They didn't have a guidance counselor that knew about public high schools, screen schools, even specialized high schools. Also, safety concerns, right? If you live in a dangerous neighborhood, maybe your family wants to keep you close to home.
For whatever reason, B-Sex, even though I think they're almost 20 years old now here in the city, they are very widely known the school is very widely known among more affluent parents, whiter parents, and a lot of parents of color don't know about us.
So I believe some of the other screen schools in New York City have not adopted similar outreach efforts like we have because they're worried. One, they might be concerned about the quality of school or the reputation the school has. So, for instance, what if they see a dip in applicants? What does that mean? I also think that it could be some, just negative thoughts they have about Black and Brown students, right? Are they capable of doing the work? There's still a lot of racism in New York City, so it's combating those negative thoughts that aren't true.
I always find it interesting that everyone approaches race issues as though it's a POC issue and like white people have no role in it. It's kind of like when we talk about slavery as African American history, but it's not African American history. It's American history. It's as white as it is Black, but we don't ever look at it from that perspective.
So segregation in New York City, I don't believe it's being taught in classrooms. I think it takes students, they have to kind of leave their environment to really understand how they've been impacted. And this goes for white students and Black and Brown students, right? Sometimes white students grow up in all these white schools and they don't know about the issue. They don't know that this exists in New York City until they come to a place like Bard or another a diverse school and they're like, whoa, you've had that experience. I've never heard that perspective. I've never realized that. That happens here. And then the same with our Black and Latinx students. They've been funneled into these majorly, poor, low income Black and Latinx student schools. And now this is their first time where they're in class with a white student or an Asian student. Um, and they have these resources. And then they're like, wow, this is what school should be like.
The kids' schools always kind of look like the kids themselves. Um, Here at BSEC, we've made a really concerted effort under the director to go out and seek out students that we know are capable of this level work, but might not know about us.
So having an integrated school body comes with a lot of challenges, and I think that's where we're at as a school. So we've kind of figured out a way of getting a diverse body into BARD, and now I think our resources and our efforts have to make sure, okay, now that these students are here, what are we doing for them? Do they have a culturally relevant curriculum? Can they relate to the books they're reading? And do they have diverse set of teachers? Right, that's so important. I always ask them, like, when did you have your first Black teacher? When did you have your first Black male teacher? Or Latino male teacher? And sometimes they're like, never. And so that's something that we're actively thinking about BARD in our hiring practices, thinking about how to do those things differently. We always involve students in our hiring practices, but maybe doing more outreach on that end. Where can we look for teachers of color to come to BARD?
I think one of the things that's kind of always on the table, and it's something that we're working towards, is opening a BSEC in the Bronx. Um, but BSEC Bronx shouldn't be a space where that means all of the kids from Riverdale and Upper Manhattan all suddenly want to go to the Bronx. It should be a space that reflects the community of the Bronx, much like this school is a decent representation of Queens. Washington D.C. is a place to watch because they opened up a D.C. school, which is mostly Black. But it'd be curious to see what happens over the next couple of years if they start getting an influx of white students from the district. Do I think New York City schools or schools in general are ever going to segregate? No, I don't think so. I don't think I'll see that. Um, but I also think that if we want to talk about being really creative about evening the playing field, then we definitely need to talk about putting more resources in spaces like that in other communities.